Okay, we are on. Welcome once again to Faces of Stone.
There they are, Albert. Faces of Stone.
I am Marc-Anthony Macon.
And I'm Noah Diamond, and we are one Face of Stone short this evening because Amanda Sisk is not feeling well. She has a cold and didn't want to join us, isn't up to it. But she did watch the episode with me, so I will be able to share a couple of her reactions.
Okay, excellent. Well, and since Amanda can't be here with us tonight, I do have my Amanda Sisk mug as a stand-in. It's not quite as talkative as she is, unfortunately.
And all of you out there who have your own Sisk mugs at home, I'm sure there are many of you. This would be a good time to wish her to get well soon.
I'm sure she'll appreciate it.
This one says Sisk on the inside.
Don't all mugs say Sisk on the inside? So we just watched Twin Peaks: The Return, Part 15. There is some fear in letting go. So if you haven't seen that episode or everything up to it, you may want to stop watching now. Otherwise, please join us for this discussion. Hang on a second. I want to make sure I got the chat up so that I can...
Oh, yes. I, too, will make sure I have the chat up. Isn't it interesting watching us get the chat up?
It is. Fascinating, fascinating viewing.
So what did you think of Twin Peaks tonight, Marc-Anthony?
Well, it seems that Stephanie said, which is not too far from my reaction.
That sums it up very well.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's start from the very beginning because we got a great opening thing. But first of all, the Rancho Rosa logo this week was mostly grays and blacks with a little bit of red, I think.
Yes.
Take that as you will.
As was the episode itself. It was mostly grays and blacks with a little bit of red. Some green. Amanda Sisk says hi from Snotland. I guess it's Snotland. Not Snotland.
The locals may call it Snotland. I think actually the locals call it Snotland.
In accordance with Snottish custom.
So we see Nadine marching down the street.
Yes.
With her golden shovel, determined as all hell. And she walks right up to Ed, and she basically says, I know I have been selfish. She does some fantastic things.
She releases him from his entire plotline.
Yes. Basically, she just walks up and ends that entire heartbreak plotline. And it was a very sweet scene. Like it was courageous and odd and adorable and wonderful. It was one of my favorite scenes in Twin Peaks, and not the way that I would ever expect that kind of thing to play out, but it was just great.
I enjoyed it too, and although I agree with what you're saying, at the same time I felt a little bit through much of the early part of this episode, like, oh, this is maybe a little more like what people were expecting from a new Twin Peaks.
Right.
You know, it continues stories that go all the way back to the original. And then the ensuing scene at the Double R.
Yes.
It's really quite something.
Wonderfully underscored by I've Been Loving You Too Long by Otis Redding. Which was, so first of all, I just got to say, Big Ed's looking great these days. What a handsome, handsome man.
He has such a compelling face too. I mean, he can do so much with a single facial muscle.
Yeah, he really can. So and also I loved how he marches in, he talks to Norma, and she seems very pleased by what he says, and then Walter comes in.
Yeah. And she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, Ed, but Walter's here."
Yeah.
And the entire audience goes, "Ah!"
But then, and of course, I think we've come to expect that the Lynch Frost combination tends to taunt us with what we want, especially in this new incarnation.
Yes, indeed.
And so it's like, oh, they're just, once again, we're just not going to get it. We are just being teased with that. And then Norma sits down with Walter and says, you know what? Now, buy me out. Screw you. I just want to have my diner. Go away. I'm going to go kiss the love of my life.
Yeah, she says, I want to be with my family.
Yeah.
Which is lovely. I mean, she's basically saying there's this family that I'm, decades late in dealing with, and that's what I'm going to do now. And there's a long, heartbreaking take of Ed sitting at the counter drinking his coffee that Shelley brings him, and his eyes are closed. He's just going through, decades of pain are coursing through him. And did you feel, I thought, okay, maybe Norma's going to come into the frame now and be sort of putting her arms around him. And that was exactly what happened.
Yeah. It was really sweet and beautiful and simple and lovely, and hopefully won't be torn asunder by what happens in the next episode somehow.
Yeah, it was satisfying and beautiful. And I have to tell you, at this point, my cable froze, which I'm ever fearful of this happening during these precious minutes,
Right.
Yeah, my cable froze and stopped streaming. And from the middle of Ed and Norma's kiss, I missed about 30 seconds to a minute, I think.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh shit! Well, so Philip Jeffries appears in the Double R Diner for like 10 seconds. And so anyway.
Yeah. What I got from Ed and Norma's kiss, I missed a little chunk, and then I'm driving on the road at night with Evil Cooper. So was there anything substantive in that transition?
Let's see. I don't think so.
And if anyone's wondering, I have Spectrum. My cable company.
Scenes of like slow beauty. There were clouds and and then wires. And then we're back to the Lost Highway.
Yeah, right.
So the last place that I would have expected to see Mr. C pulling up to is the convenience store, which I didn't really think about existing in quite, the physical space that he's been driving around in.
Apparently, it's a lodge-like portal because it disappears at the end of the sequence.
Right.
But
because it's the Dutchman, right? It's the Flying Dutchman.
Oh, I guess it's the Dutchman's, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what I took from that. It it disappears with the Flying Dutchman. So they go up the stairs. So I see, when that shot started, you see the stairs, and I'm like, oh, so even though there isn't a second floor, there seems to be access to the second floor.
There's something up there, and also the convenience store looks exactly the way it did in Part 8. So it's not that we were seeing a period piece.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was. The sections of Part 8 took place in 45 and 56, but that convenience store is a timeless apparition of some kind.
Exactly. So, I guess you walk up these stairs and then you zap into the light to be on the second floor. So
yes.
So this is the same space that Laura goes into in Fire Walk With Me.
Yeah.
Given the photograph by Mrs. Tremond, creepy dancing son or grandson.
Yeah, and we see the Fire Walk With Me pointy nose Phantom of the Opera and a red suit guy. Right,
exactly.
We hear Threnody sounds.
We do. And so then some woodsmen are there. One of them does something very similar to what one of the woodsmen did in Fire Walk With Me, which was to adjust this kind of device. Not exactly a television or I don't know what it was, but it seems to emit light. Mm-hmm. And they adjust it for some reason. As the woodsmen are leading him through the rooms, we see trees as well.
Yeah, there's sections in the woods, and then walking through what looks like some kind of housing complex,
Right.
And then a backwards lodge talking character who I didn't recognize. Did you know who that was?
And I didn't see the name of that character in the credits.
Yeah, I didn't either.
But I did, as we were being led through rooms, of course, I was just thinking of Gordon Cole saying, "Dirty bearded men in a room."
Yeah. Also, I don't know if you realized this, Marc-Anthony, but I took an internet quiz to see which Twin Peaks character I was.
Which one are you?
It's amazing what we can do nowadays. And I actually am Gordon Cole.
Are you? Well, that certainly means something.
Yeah, so if you have any questions.
Quick aside just before I forget. So the other day I watched Lynch, The Art Life, the documentary about David Lynch. And it seems that he had a mentor in his late teens, early 20s, something like that, a painter that sort of took him under his wing, gave him studio space, and kind of fought for him to have a chance to, be a creative person, whose name was Bushnell.
Oh, no kidding.
So I'm wondering if, it seems almost certain that that's kind of where Bushnell Mullins gets his name and kind of the function that he serves in Dougie / Cooper's life in this incarnation. I think seems likely.
Oh, that's really interesting. Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, that was a tangent, but so back to dirty bearded men in a room.
Dirty bearded men in a room.
So he's taken out into this, almost looks like a motel compound, or
something like that. Some kind of, very dirty and kind of run down.
And he's taken to room number 8.
Yes.
And this backwards speaking character says, "I'll unlock the door for you." And then we see an Eraserhead radiator. I immediately thought of the lady in the radiator from Eraserhead.
And it's issuing smoke or steam. Right.
And so then I tried to write down exactly what Philip Jeffries was, and I crossed it out several times. I didn't know what.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I said that this looked a lot like a 1930s German lithograph. That doesn't help us in the story, but that image thing with smoke, it really looked like
it was kind of tea kettle-like in a way to me. It also was reminiscent of the devices that we've seen ostensible White Lodge entities use, like Nido and the firemen. They have kind of used things shaped like that.
Yeah, that dome-like black metal thing that was in the possible White Lodge, and it was also in space with Cooper back in episode 3 or 4, maybe.
Yeah, an early episode. So it kind of has this steam or smoke coming out of a little, spout, and it's sort of spiraling into a circular shape. Basically, Philip Jeffries coming out of it.
Yeah, it's the evolution of Philip Jeffries.
If you can't get David Bowie, what you do is you just get, a big robot teapot that is some kind of cloud.
Yeah, I hear they're going to hire that thing to do a Labyrinth sequel.
I think that thing would be great in a reprise of Dance Magic Dance. I would eat that up.
And it is confirmed here that indeed, I guess the reason somebody else dubbed David Bowie's dialogue in the previous episode was because they were going to need the voice again.
Right, yeah. So, but what's weird to me about that, when we saw that the previous episode was dedicated to David Bowie, I think, we all kind of thought, all right, that means we're not going to get any actual new footage of Bowie. Otherwise, that episode would have been dedicated to him. But I feel like had they left that scene, the audio as it was, with David Bowie, and then just had this scene as it was, I don't think I would have said, that sounds so different.
Yeah.
I feel
like
if
you did think it sounded different, you would have just developed a theory about about what happened to Jeffries.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's also strange about that dubbing is that a couple of words were changed in the dialogue, but they're almost entirely inconsequential. I think it's, in Firewalk with Me, he says, who do you think this is there? And in this episode, the previous episode, he said, who do you think that is there? Now, I don't know why you would change that. It also seems like an odd mistake to make, so it's kind of weird all around.
Yeah, keeping it weird.
So Jeffries and Mr. C have a talk.
Jeffries seems to accept that Mr. C is Dale Cooper based on Mr. C's ability to testify that in 1989 they were in the Philadelphia office and spoke of Judy.
But in that scene, it seemed that Jeffries was suspicious of who Cooper was. So why, if he didn't believe it was Cooper then necessarily, why would he believe it's Cooper now?
It seemed very flimsy, but it seemed like when Evil Coop started referring to the events of 1989, Jeffrey seems to say, well, so you are Cooper. But then he doesn't give him the answer he's looking for when Evil Cooper demands to know who Judy is.
Yeah.
Jeffrey says, you've already met her. What's that?
Yeah, he's very adamant about this. Who is Judy? He's not gotten... This is the first time we've really seen Mr. C seem a little bit like, hey, I'm not winning here.
Mm-hmm.
This is something I want and I'm not getting it. It does, however, Jeffries does start spewing some numbers, which I assume are the coordinates.
He says, I'll write it down for you.
Right. And writing it down means making it float in little wafty cloudules around an upturned teacup.
Which Evil Cooper does seem to perhaps write down. And I also, Evil Cooper, he carries a notepad and a pencil with him all the time because you never know when you're going to forget something.
Well, and I mean, this is just a lesson for all of us. If you're going to be going to some sort of existential, disappearing other realm, just take some basic school supplies with you. It may come in handy.
It makes me wonder if the one-armed man told him, that's why you always leave a note.
Okay, so I think I may have told you this already, but I think I know who Judy is.
What do you got?
I think Judy is Major Briggs.
Oh, yes, because of Garland.
Judy Garland. Yeah. I think that this was, either Philip Jeffries, just a name that he had or a code he had for Garland Briggs, or, a code that he and Gordon shared or something, but clearly Cooper didn't know who it was if Mr. C doesn't.
Yeah, Jeffries says you've already met her, which would support Major Briggs, I guess.
Right.
I mean, that very well could be. I can't think of a solid argument against it, and it's compelling. I've seen theories elsewhere that maybe Nido is Judy. That
would be interesting. Okay. Well, hopefully we'll
strange. I mean, this series does do they really do get a lot of curiosity out of just dropping names every so often. And we wander around our lives saying, who's Judy? Who's Linda? Who's Tina?
We have no idea who Billy is, and we really care for some fucking reason.
Who are any of these people, really?
Yes. They're all actors that got paid to do something. Except for Judy, maybe, who might be a monkey. Because that was
the monkey.
There's a monkey that said Firewalk. Okay, so anyway, so the phone rings inside of this space, and Mr. C picks it up, and then he's outside in the phone booth, and there's Richard. So
yeah.
So he also thinks that this is regular Cooper. My mom had your picture.
He totally confirms. Yeah.
Right?
Ding, ding, ding.
And Cooper is just like, I don't have time for you. Knocks him down. Get in the truck. We'll explain more later. So Cooper seems to know who Richard is.
He does. And why is Richard pursuing him? I mean, Richard seems to have followed him, perhaps from the farm with the arm wrestling cult.
Right. Well, and I mean, this does seem to kind of align with Richard's being a really stupid criminal MO. Is that, I'm involved in all these shady things and wanted for murder. There's an FBI guy here. Let me track him down.
Yeah.
Right up in that guy's face.
Well, he seems to intend to kill him.
Yeah. Which again, this just seems like getting yourself in deeper shit, Mr. Horn. But then again, his mom did have a predilection for that too, just not quite so intensely. But then the other thing that happens here, though, is that Mr. C texts Las Vegas.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so now we assume that this is the message being sent to Diane. And,
which would turn back the clock a little bit.
Right. When was it that she got that?
She got that Las Vegas message, I think, maybe 3 episodes ago. She got it in the waiting room at the morgue, I think, right when Cole and Albert were going to look at Briggs's body.
No, I think that's when she got the message about around the dinner table conversation was lively.
Oh yeah, yes, you're quite right. Okay, was it at the bar?
This was more recent than that, but I mean, it was, it must have been maybe the same time when they were kind of bringing Tammy into the Blue Rose thing. They were first telling her about that, maybe around that episode.
Yeah, somewhere in there.
I haven't been looking at the comments. Maybe someone there knows. Look,
nothing yet. Although Amanda Sisk did buy your Philip Jeffries at the Double R a few moments ago.
Stephanie's asking, was Cooper at the motel where Teresa Banks was murdered? That's a possibility. I'll have to go back and look at Fire and see if that's the case.
Well, anyhow, we can add to the confusion about chronology this matter of Evil Coop sending this text. We assume to Diane, that we saw her receive at least a few episodes back.
Exactly.
And Evil Coop and Richard get into the truck and go away together. Evil Coop now just is kind of claiming Richard Horn as his ally, and Richard Horn unquestioningly drives off with him. And then the convenience store smokes and buzzes and vanishes.
Gone.
Talk about convenient.
I love that it doesn't have a name. It's it's not like Al's convenience store or anything. It's just convenience store.
Yeah.
I think that's great. It's just a generic convenience store. So I'm walking through the woods with the doggy, and we see Stephen itching.
Yes.
Reminiscent of the itching girl.
Yeah.
I was also starting, it's like, Stephen has looked throughout this whole series, and is he in some sort of a earlier stage of the kid from the honking woman's car that was spewing whatever, or the drunk in the jail that repeats everyone's coffee.
And maybe even the crawling, screaming girl at the end of this episode.
Yeah. Let's get to her. Well, let's not skip to her, but yeah, I've got some thoughts on.
But I mean, a lot of the people of Twin Peaks are exhibiting bizarre symptoms.
Yes. Yeah. It seems there's something going around.
This Stephen, and I guess that's Gersten Hayward he's huddled with.
Right.
I didn't even try to really follow what they were saying to each other. But
there was. Hold on a second. I seem to be getting. All right. My dad decided to call me right now. I'll back later. Okay. So there were. I guess the next time I watch it, I might put on the closed captioning so that I can make out what he was saying. But a lot of it seemed, almost like a really, really rough first draft of adolescent Jabberwocky.
Yeah, right. He gets to threatening to kill himself, and she's sort of begging him not to. The guy walking the dog startles them and causes them to separate. And then we only see Gersten's face when we hear a gunshot. And then we pan around the trees for a little while. I assume Stephen has killed himself here.
Or, we are certainly at least meant to believe that that's the case. Or that Gersten probably thinks that that's what's happened. And I see no reason to believe otherwise. It seems like that's probably what happened.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I have written down here, no idea what he's saying.
Yeah, no idea what he's saying. And I honestly, I wasn't even trying. I was just getting through that scene. And then the guy with the dog goes home to the Fat Trout trailer park and tells Carl Rudd it's that trailer.
And also, like, I felt like the trees in this scene, we got some tree shots, and it sounded like they were doing a whale song or something. There was a kind of like moaning of trees happening.
Yeah.
So next we go to the Roadhouse.
Do you think? I'm sorry. Do you think that moaning of the trees was it the same sound that we've been hearing at the Great Northern?
No. It seemed more. The Great Northern sound is more like a hum or a or a bell. You know, like a I don't know exactly what it is. This seemed more groaning.
Yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. You were moving us along.
So the next thing that happens at the Roadhouse is one of my favorite things I've ever seen. Which is, now at the Roadhouse, we will give you "Sharp Dressed Man" by ZZ Top.
Yes, what's going on?
Style. It just has this little handmade thing someone went to, like their local arts and crafts place and made. And he turned it up all the way for ZZ Top, and then everyone
but not for an appearance by ZZ Top.
No, not
play the song.
Just to play the song, and he was more excited about this than anyone else he's introduced. And he's introduced James Hurley and the Nine Inch Nails.
Well, back in part 8, when he did introduce the Nine Inch Nails, it was the first time we saw him do an introduction like that, and so it seemed special. And we thought, oh, I guess they're calling attention to this strange celebrity appearance by this band we wouldn't expect to see at this place. And then when James Hurley got the next introduction in that fashion, we thought, okay, well, that totally makes sense. Then last week, Lissy got an introduction. And now the guy's just running out and saying, hey, we're going to play a ZZ Top song. So I think whatever psychopathy is happening with that character needs to be examined in much more detail. Next thing you know, he's going to come running out and saying, we have nachos. We have nachos.
As long as he's always got the pine cone, I will be thrilled. I'm kind of falling in love with that pine cone.
Didn't Chad say something about pine cone in an early episode in Mocking the Log Lady? He said something like, I've got to go and talk to my pine cone.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Chad, who it's still wonderful to watch Being in Hell, by the way.
Yes.
So James and Freddie show up, and we get to see the green dishwashing or gardening pile driver in action.
Yes.
It was really kind of delightful and hilarious. He's just sort of like put his hand somewhere and boom.
Yeah, and it seems to be a fairly fatal blow. I guess we'll find out. But Renee's husband, who he punched in the face, was not doing well. He was kind of foaming at the mouth, and his eyes were rolling back, and it was bad news.
Yeah, it seems that Freddie hasn't taken his actions into consideration too strongly here. By the way, I saw a lot of people pointing out something that I didn't even pick up on, but you have a guy named Freddie. He's got a glove that he can't take off, and then he's hanging around and looking over furnaces. This is a Nightmare on Elm Street reference. It kind of seems like it might have been. Anyway.
Do you think Freddie... Freddie seems to have been chosen by the firemen to fulfill some destiny in Twin Peaks that involves having a super fist. Do you think Freddie is somehow an instrument to be used against Evil Cooper?
I suppose so. I don't know. I mean, a lot of, it seems kind of the most obvious thing would be arm wrestling just because of that one scene, but that also just kind of seems weird if it would suddenly be Evil Cooper shows up in Twin Peaks and is like, no, I'm going to arm wrestle my way to... I'm kind of hoping that, now especially that we've seen him kind of use his super punch on a couple of random people we don't care about, that the way that his gardening attire figures into the finale will be something more surprising than that.
Well, one thing that keeps getting emphasized is that evil Cooper cannot be subdued physically. You know, he cannot be bested in terms of combat, and he does get arrested, but we find out later he wanted to go to that jail.
Yeah.
It was a big part.
Theoretically, he could have gotten out at any time, and
yeah. So this setup with a kind of invincible villain and this kid with a super green gardening glove fist, they may be on some kind of collision course.
You think?
Yeah, wow. And then we go back to Vegas. By the way, this was another one of those episodes where I kept thinking, oh, well, this is probably the last scene. Oh, no. Well, this is where it's going to end. Oh, no, this is it. It really was a densely packed episode.
And Amanda has commented that in Elm Street, Nancy's house does look a lot like Laura's, and that's true.
Yeah, except
it has a bright red door like Dougie's.
Yeah, and Amanda also tells us further up in the comments that Diane got the Las Vegas text when she was at the bar in that hotel in Buckhorn, as you were saying, when they start letting Tammy in deeper.
Yeah, so...
the Vegas FBI, who are delightful.
Yes,
they got the wrong Jones,
but they're great. So yeah, they had. I wonder how many Mr. and Mrs. Dougie Jones are we going to see?
Yeah, it was nice. It's just like the previous episode set up this Vegas FBI office as being a little off.
Not quite, but yeah.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful Peaksian moment when the seemingly minor character at the desk suddenly blew up at his subordinate and said, "That's the way we do things at the FBI. Don't you know anything?" And so now we see that actually that guy kind of did need a talking to.
Well, the other funny thing, I mean, this is just, I think, a kind of a Lynch thing in general in a lot of ways, is that there are just lots of times when people just choose not to communicate what they should, or choose not to ask questions. Like, why doesn't that guy just call Gordon back and say, "Hey, could you give us more information?"
Yeah.
A little bit more.
There's a lot of that. And Frank Truman also, at times, could be a lot more
forthcoming. I was wondering if it's possible that phone call, along with time things, maybe that had happened right after they had found the pages and they hadn't talked to Betty Briggs yet. Information. It was really, they just found these things. And it's like, I better call the FBI. So they only had that little bit of information that there were two Coopers. That's all he knew at that time.
Yeah, I guess that is entirely possible. And I think some of these questions about how linear the whole thing is, we just won't know until we get to the end, and maybe not even then.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
certainly there'll be plenty of continuity.
Is it truly like they took all the scenes in this story and threw them up in the air and wherever the scenes landed or wherever they felt right? I don't think it's quite that random. There is some progression from episode to episode. But as for whether it could be so disordered that that conversation alone took place before something we saw many episodes ago, I don't know yet.
I do think I was rewatching recently, and I was watching the beginning scene, the very first scene, I think, in the entire new series, where you have Cooper in what we are now thinking may be the White Lodge, talking to the fireman, and the fireman tells him all the stuff about Linda and Richard, two birds with one stone, all of that. So I'm wondering when that takes place, because it doesn't seem that it takes place before everything else. He's definitely Dale Cooper. He's not in the Black Lodge.
Yeah.
But is that something we're going to see again later?
Maybe at the very end.
Yeah. So okay. So then we have Chantal.
Yeah, more fast food and talk of torture.
Right. Is this the scene where she kills?
Actually, we skipped ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
First, we have Duncan and Roger. That's right. No, I skipped ahead. You are fine. Yes, that's right. Chantal shows up after Duncan and Roger have a little. Have you heard from Anthony? No, I haven't heard anything from Anthony. Then yes, Chantal walks in and shoots him.
Right, and then she walks out and she calls Hutch, and is very casual, like, "Oh, hi, hon, yeah," and then she can hear, behind her that the job isn't quite done.
Right.
And so she's just like, "All right, yeah," goes back in, and then finishes the job and walks back out and is immediately talking about fast food, as is her penchant.
Yeah, as Stephanie Schenkel is saying in our YouTube comments, Chantal is always up for a burger and some torture.
And some torture. And, speaking of which, I think, Stephanie, that her burger torture thing might come together in a future episode. I think that we were getting a little, warm-up there that she's just itching to torture somebody. So
yeah, maybe that's true.
Yeah.
Chantal at this point is a loaded gun in the first act of a play.
Mm-hmm. She really is. She is Chekhov's burger hound. So then we're back in the jail cell. We've got the drunk, we've got Nido, we have Chad, and then they bring in Freddie and James.
And it's interesting to see Bobby and James in the scene together, and they don't ever acknowledge that they have a past or anything.
Right, yeah, that's, I guess theoretically that's not as awkward as it used to be. But the last time that they were both in this room together, one was barking at the other one.
Yeah, right. Right. As far as we know, maybe in the last 25 years, they've had all sorts of adventures in jail together.
Right. Also, just Chantal, I hate it when you give me these little ketchup packets.
That's all they had.
And I also love how judgmental they are. Like, they're like, it's just a nation of killers.
Yeah.
Anyway, so...
Yeah, maybe because of the casting. All of their scenes just feel like Tarantino to me. I mean, everything. The small talk, the fast food, the kind of casual talk about, gruesome acts.
I don't think it's just the casting. Yeah, they do have a very Tarantino feel. And really, this whole series has had lots of nods to other directors and films that Lynch enjoys or appreciates. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's intentional. But they're a lot of fun. Like, I just love their... casual murder banter.
Yeah, casual murder banter.
What really happens in this jail scene, though? I mean, it's really just Freddie and I think it's interesting that, like, Freddie and James see Nido and they kind of seem to think she's strange, but they don't seem to think that the repeating green, blubbering, bleeding guy is strange.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He's not quite as strange as she is, especially in that setting.
Well, I suppose that's true, too. But we also, like, Bobby never really... We don't know what happened with the girl in the car.
Yeah.
We just saw her and then was transfixed, and that was that. We don't know how that resolved in any way. And also, I have all these notes from that. I love that Chantel scene. It's a beautiful night, Mars.
Yeah, Mars.
So then we have Dougie getting another piece of cake.
Yeah, eating cake.
And now, when this first happened, I was wondering if it's the same scene we've seen before. Is this going to be another, different take on the other cake scene? But no, Jeannie is still very enamored with her Dougie. And so, I didn't get to check. What movie was it from?
I don't know. I actually should have looked in the credits for some information about that. I didn't look in the credits, but yes, I asked Amanda if she knew what it was, and neither of us did. But people seem to feel, I actually didn't catch it, but Amanda thought that one of the characters on TV that Dougie Coop was watching says something about Gordon Cole.
Yes, they do.
Stephanie Schenkel says it's Sunset Boulevard. Right, of course it is, because there's a character named Gordon Cole in Sunset Boulevard.
Okay.
That's right. I haven't seen Sunset Boulevard in a long time, but there you go.
I have never seen Sunset Boulevard, so maybe I need to remedy that.
Oh, it really is beautiful, but I haven't seen it since high school. But I know that Gordon Cole's name and a lot of Lynch Frost inspiration comes from Sunset Boulevard. And the Marilyn Monroe story that they were going to do before they did Twin Peaks was
their original, yeah. And clearly, like, there's a bit of that leaked into Twin Peaks.
Yeah, noirish stuff.
What I think is interesting about this, though, is that maybe I'm blanking, and there are some other instances, but with the exception of this and Monica Bellucci, there really aren't too many references to real-world culture in Twin Peaks, you know, to media that you might otherwise be watching when not watching Twin Peaks. People don't tend to talk about music or movies or things that...
Yeah, that's one of the reasons I found the Nine Inch Nails appearance in Part 8 so jarring. Because for a band, such a name brand band, to be part of this world, I did think that fractured something that we sort of assume about Twin Peaks. The thing that stops you from asking whether Gordon Cole is reporting to James Comey.
Yes. So, I mean, but I just wonder if these are hints at the fact that, you know, we are now dealing with a dreamer type situation and you know, bits of the real world returning, and it's more than just that layer of the story, so that you know, maybe the real world is somehow involved here.
Yeah,
it does.
Well, Sunset Boulevard exists, and Marlon Brando does too, as far as we can tell.
As far as we know.
So, all right.
There's no strong evidence that Marlon Brando doesn't exist.
but Michael Cera does not exist in this world.
No fucking way.
So Dougie Coop sees he turns on the TV. Sunset Boulevard, thank you everybody, is playing. Therefore, hearing the name Gordon Cole is quite a natural thing, but it triggers something in him. It makes him notice the electrical outlet and crawls.
Just like the flag did before, yeah.
Yeah, right. And he crawls slowly, wielding a fork, toward an electrical outlet, and we all become parents. Going, no, don't do that. No, Cooper.
Oh, well, that's what you know. I was saying do it. I figured it was going to shock him into being Cooper.
And as far as we know, it did. Because all we got was a flash of electricity and a scream from Janie E.
Right. Yeah, her perfect husband is now possibly gone.
Yeah. Oh, and then we get a very, I guess, a kind of coda to the Log Lady's entire role.
Yeah. Just very bluntly, Hawk, I'm dying. And as you know about death, it's not an end, it's a... I can't read my own writing here.
It's not an end. It's a change. I think she says
it's a change, something like that, or it's a watch for the one under the moon.
Yeah, is that the one as in Laura is the one?
Well, I'm also wondering if it's like on the map that Briggs gave them. You've got the sun and the moon over the two mountains, and under the moon is the symbol that Mr. C showed to Daria.
Yeah.
And that Hawks told Frank, you don't ever want to know what that is. You do not want to be informed, Frank.
Yeah, right. You don't want to know that detail of the story, Frank.
Sharing information is really bad in this world, apparently.
Maybe in episode 17, Frank.
And she says, my log is turning to gold.
Yes.
So, you know, I mean, I guess there are a lot of ways to take that. I kind of read it as, you know, her consciousness was sort of transforming as she was transitioning into, you know, whatever was next for her, and it wasn't a log anymore, it was gold now, which...
And there has been a lot of stuff with gold, people turning into gold nuggets in the Black Lodge, and the little gold object sitting on the transmitter box in Buenos Aires. And
you know, like, turning things into gold is a very common even alchemy, obviously. And there seems to be a lot of the influence of like alchemists and people that were interested in like Aleister Crowley and all of that whole band of fun people, Freemason, Illuminati stuff that was big in the secret history of TNT. So.
Yeah, and I'm just noticing some helpful comments in the YouTube chat. Stephanie Schenkel reminds us that the shovel is the gold shovel.
Mm-hmm.
And Amanda tells us it's Justin Bieber. That's what the symbol means. I wouldn't have known that.
Oh, no. It's a good thing that Amanda's in the know. Here's you, Amanda.
But now the symbol that Mr. C showed Daria on the playing card and that we see again on Hawk's map, I guess it's not really confirmed, but we've talked about the possibility, and others have talked about the possibility, that represents the mother or the experiment or whoever vomited out orbs from her head and things like that. I've also seen some theorizing that perhaps that mother thing is what is inhabiting Sarah Palmer.
Yeah, that would kind of follow. And by the way, I feel like when I watched that episode again, she took off her face, and then something shoots out. I don't know if it's like sparks or water or a tongue or what.
Yeah, there's an electric buzz and something goes like pss, pss.
Yeah. And then we see the hand with the darkened finger on, the spiritual mound.
Yes.
I feel like what I didn't notice the first time is it kind of seems like that hand may also be removing a mask. Like she has, takes off her face, and then this thing removes a mask inside, and then there's a smile.
Yeah.
I don't know what, if anything, that means, but I guess there are layers inside of Sarah Palmer.
Yeah, well, whatever was going on when she opened her face, it does make me think, I don't think it in any way confirms it or says anything for sure, but it does kind of make me think of some of the mother imagery we've been seeing. And if this thing that is the mother that appeared in the glass box in New York and so on and so forth, we're looking for a human vessel of some kind, why not Laura Palmer's mother?
It would be convenient. And, we know how the mother feels about convenience.
Yeah, you can't even change the beef jerky on her.
So, also, though, I watched someone play a side-by-side video of Sarah Palmer watching the boxing match and the woodsman reciting the poem. And it is interesting to watch these two things happen next to each other. It does seem like there may be some intentional syncing up.
Wow.
And especially considering that, the horse is the white of the eyes, and she's always seeing a horse. It seems like maybe somehow she is being controlled through whatever, the woodsmen are up to.
Yeah, well, okay, and then there's also the connection between the imagery that we saw in the convenience store with Evil Coop walking up those stairs and that wallpaper. Laura's world and the world of the Palmer house is obviously connected to whatever we're calling this convenience store lodge.
Yeah, that's a good question. What are we calling this? Because
the Dutchman's.
Oh, I guess that works. Yeah, that's a. So I suppose for a long time people kind of thought about, all right, there's the Black Lodge and there's the White Lodge, and these are sort of these two good and evil places, and maybe the Red Room might have been a waiting room that wasn't either. There was some debate about whether that was the Black Lodge or if that was not quite there. But now it kind of seems like there are just these various places that are kind of all on their own side and cooperate and fight at will.
Yeah, I wonder if the Hastings and Ruth Davenport idea of the zone is, I had been accepting that as sort of their junior detective name for whatever they were investigating. But maybe it's more accurate to think of the spiritual world of this story as a sort of interconnected zone, rather than like there's one place you get to by going here in the woods.
Oh, and Amanda's saying, is alcohol to Sarah and Diane what medicine was to one-armed Mike? That's
Oh.
yeah. And there have been other situations like that in Twin Peaks where, someone's kind of nullifying.
Right.
Hmm.
Oh, that's very interesting. So, yes, if Sarah were prevented from drinking, would she eventually not be able to control what's inhabiting her? We're assuming that she's being inhabited in a Bob-like fashion, too.
Or something. I mean, it certainly seems like that there are times when she doesn't know what's going on. And she does seem to be switching between some kind of identity, at least. Or if nothing else, she's having yeah. Yeah. But it doesn't seem to be the same kind of thing as Bob. It's that's why I think saying it's the experimental model or the mother makes a little more sense, because it seems like something much more frightening in her than Bob.
That she's part of some cosmic thing that's greater than just a malevolent force kind of looking to cause pain. Yeah.
Yeah. Bob is just kind of this, like greedy,
eager for fun.
Right.
He's Bob.
There's a smile, everybody run. So So then, Frank and Bobby and Lucy and Andy are told by Hawk that Margaret has died, and they just have a really sweet farewell moment for her.
Yeah, and Lucy says the log lady is dead. It was a very touching moment.
Mm-hmm. I don't know the extent to which, I don't know exactly when she passed away. I assume that most of her scenes were filmed early on in the production process. So, I think there is a good chance that the cast had just learned this news when they filmed that scene as well.
Oh, that hadn't occurred to me. Yeah, that's interesting.
So, I think it's an interesting, with a show with this many characters, there's a good chance that many of them very rarely had scenes together, but they were still, kind of felt they were part of a family that was, because I don't know how many scenes Lucy had with the log lady.
Yeah, well, they probably sat on some discussion panels together.
Yes, that's true. They probably went to a lot of Comic-Cons together.
But it's interesting that I hope that we get to know the story of how this season of Twin Peaks was created. I'm almost as interested in knowing that as I am in knowing, the answers to all the questions we have about the events on the show. I hope Mark Frost does like an in-depth interview at some point and says, so David and I sat down and this is what we did. It'll be interesting to hear in particular how the log lady stuff happened. It almost feels like they just went to her house and set something up with a little bit of lighting, and in one day they just got in the can like all the log lady stuff. That's how it feels, but I would love to know how all that happened.
I mean, no matter what they ended up doing to make that happen, she was not in the best health when she filmed it. So it was just a tremendous act of courage and kindness and friendship on her part to do that.
It's amazingly brave, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then we see her cabin light go out.
Yeah, and the lights go off in her cabin.
It was, very sweet and sad.
Oh, I guess.
The log lady is one of my favorite characters in history, and it's really sad to see her go.
And she was the voice of the show in some important ways. I mean, half the titles or descriptions of these episodes come from, what little appearance she makes, and I
suppose produces every single episode from the original series. In the second run, every episode has a log lady introduction. She really is kind of the heart and soul of the show in a lot of ways. So.
Yeah, it feels like she can kind of speak for David Lynch in a way that none of the other characters, even Gordon Cole, can.
Right.
And I guess her death in this episode, I guess we can let go of the theory that maybe she and Hawk and possibly Cooper are destined to have cake and pie and coffee together.
Well, maybe there still could be a coffee and pie scene in the White Lodge or something.
Yeah, that's true.
We don't. But yeah, I think it is unlikely at this point.
Or it'll be the evolution of the log lady. There'll be a tree that talks like David Bowie or something.
We still do not know the resolution, though, of that scene where Hawk goes to the Black Lodge and he's supposed to stop by for pie and stuff later and talk to Margaret.
Have you rewatched that? I've been wanting to go back to the beginning, and I know you've done a little bit of that lately.
I have, and it doesn't resolve. It's just she asks where he's walking, and he says he heard something was going to be happening there that night, and she says she's got pie and coffee or tea and coffee. I don't know what she says, but she's got stuff for it. And he says it'll have to be later because this is about to happen, and then he sees the red curtains, and then it cuts to other things in the episode, and we never return to that. So,
well, that clears nothing up then.
So Audrey and Charlie, in the continuing story of No Exit, the Twin Peaks version.
Yes, they do not move. It's waiting for Godot too.
Yeah.
Yeah, by now I'm just tired of this Audrey Charlie stuff.
I was a little bit tired of it, but you being tired of it makes me kind of enjoy it.
That's what I'm here for, Marc-Anthony.
Really, because anything in Twin Peaks that I might not like, as soon as it really bothers everyone else, I start to like it more. With the one exception being that insipid subplot in Twin Peaks episode 2 or season 2 with James and the rich woman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I'm with everybody. I hate that too.
Do you think I could hate it enough to make you love it?
No, you couldn't. It's just demonstrably awful.
Well, the Audrey Charlie stuff, I've been benefit of doubt all this way. But I feel like at this point now, we've gotten 3 installments of this story with no progress. And I think if it were involving 2 characters who we don't know anything about or who are new, fine. But it starts to feel like Audrey's role in this story, whatever it might be, is either going to have to blossom in a magnificent way, or it just feels, I don't know, it feels like an injustice to such an important character.
Well, and there are so many things about it that are just odd. Why is this character being used in this way? And if it were to blossom into something beautiful, what could that possibly be from this point?
Yeah.
Why does everything look like it's from the 20s? Why have we not seen anything modern? And why is this not really the Audrey that we know? I mean, other than we assume that, she was in a coma for a while and her personality or memories were affected. But
yeah, I've seen theories that she's in a coma, or that Charlie is actually her psychiatrist. None of these seem to hold up to scrutiny, although who the hell knows?
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really could be that all of the Billy and Chuck and Tina and stuff, references we've gotten outside of
right.
Could be red herrings just to make us think this is related, and that she is somehow, in fact, still in this coma. What someone pointed out, who was this that gave me this theory? Whoever it is, I think it might be a friend of mine, so if I can't give you proper credit, I'm sorry, jump in and let me know. But the idea being that, well, if Audrey is in a coma and does come out of it at some point close to the end of this series, similarly to how Dale comes out of being trapped in his man-baby Dougie phase, suddenly, where these two had wonderful chemistry when they first met but were not in places in their life where it could work, now they've both experienced something completely bizarre that very few people can relate to. They have to figure out who they are again, and they've got this perfect love story to happen. Like, that's...
that has occurred to me. I've thought about that. And I thought about it again in this episode when Richard Horn tells Evil Coop, my mom has a picture of you, just kind of reminding us that Dale Cooper was very important to Audrey.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, that has occurred to me. And it's interesting because if that is what happened, So I mean, if this is building to a surprise, like happily ever after for Dale Cooper and Audrey, then we have to applaud the misdirection of Sherilyn Fenn and all leaking that she was really disappointed, in the way the character ended up and all that kind of stuff.
Well, but I mean, I guess the other question is, like, if this is because there were just some kind of creative differences, like, if I don't really know what happened behind the scenes, but I mean, if it is that maybe Sherilyn Fenn and Lynch had a falling out or an argument or something, and he was like, fine, I'm just going to put you in a room
with Charlie.
You know who you are, and there will be old phones only, and you'll just repeat the same things over and over about characters no one's heard of.
You think about that, Sherilyn Fenn. I just feel, I mean, my real complaint at this point, 3 mini episodes into the Audrey story, isn't that I don't know what's going on or that it's mysterious or weird. It's more that it's not entertaining. It's just painful to see her in this state, and it feels pointlessly painful. Maybe, as is often the case with this show, the pain will be justified. Something will happen and we'll say, oh, and later when we revisit these episodes, we'll know what we know, so it'll be great.
I will say that upon rewatching those scenes, I do enjoy them a lot more than the first time that I see them.
That tends to be the case.
So like with this one that I just watched, I shared your exhaustion with it. I was like, oh, come on, they're standing right by the door, just go out, Vladimir.
That's what Amanda said we were watching, and she says, I need her to open the door. She also said that, Amanda said that she thought Audrey and Charlie has become part 8 for her. So you may remember how she felt about part 8.
Which remains my favorite episode. I still think part 8 is my favorite episode.
And I remain the reasonable middle ground between you and your two.
The humble, reasonable middle ground. But I mean, I don't know. I do find them more amusing, and I think I especially just kind of enjoy her performance in them the second time around. I see a lot of nuance and humor in it, considering that she's saying things that ostensibly have no meaning. And
yeah,
so
she is very self-possessed, in a way, and like, she keeps falling apart too, but in those conversations with Charlie, sometimes when she's arguing with him, you do see the kind of spark of Audrey, what we always loved about her, her kind of irrepressible, I'm not going to take it attitude. And the way she kind of stands up to Charlie here and there does
did attack
like in character. Yeah, right. But this, I sure hope this comes to something good for Audrey, whether that means happy in terms of what happens to the character or not. Just the use of the character, I hope, justifies itself.
The one thing that stood out, the line that I wrote down from that was right here on the threshold. So, I mean, it is not even winking. It's just slapping us in the face with na 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 na. Not gonna cross the line. Okay, so girl sitting in booth. 2 big guys come up. She says she's waiting for a friend. They just kind of hug and pick her up and put her on the floor.
Yeah, and I was so happy they didn't like make some kind of rape threat.
Yeah, that was what I was worried about too. So I mean, it is an odd situation to be in when you're like, whew, it was just them throwing her out of the booth.
Yeah. Hey, these are nice guys for the Roadhouse.
Permission. That's all they did was just remove her from where she was sitting and then take that spot.
Yeah.
But then
she's like a child, for one.
Yeah, and she's I can't tell her exact age, but she's young, and she gets down on her knees and starts crawling, and it's very, very upsetting. I found it very upsetting.
Yeah, it was
weird. It was because you don't know why she's not standing up. She looks horrified.
She's kind of maybe starts to cry a little bit.
And then she screams. And then we have credits.
Yeah.
So my first thought when I saw her, and I don't know why, was that this is Linda.
Oh.
And I don't know why I thought this. And then when she started crawling on all fours, I kind of thought this again, because I was like, oh, this is like when Dougie was crawling and he threw up the Garmonbozia, and maybe she's going to throw up Garmonbozia in the Roadhouse, but no, that seems not to have been the case, at least not yet. But once again, we have another mild non sequitur taking place in at least finding its genesis in a Roadhouse booth.
Yeah.
The Roadhouse booth, the invitation to love of Twin Peaks: The Return.
Yeah, although in this case, it's funny. The Roadhouse, it does seem like maybe vaguely with each Roadhouse scene, the Roadhouse scenes have felt a little more connected to what we think of as the main story. And in this case, although this girl crawling on the floor and the two guys lifting her out of the booth, we don't really know how to account for that yet. But the real Roadhouse scene in this episode was with James and Freddie and Renee and her husband, and a recording of ZZ Top.
Yeah, okay. Well, I guess that did include the ZZ Top thing, because I was going to say that the real scene was ZZ Top in the Roadhouse this week.
And then I thought, well, James Hurley actually pantomimed his number, so maybe he could have pantomimed ZZ Top's number too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I feel like this was a very Twin Peaks episode.
It was indeed, and I've been feeling, I have stopped worrying about whether an episode is going to be, good or not. At this point, it feels like some of the mid-season episodes might have been stretching material a little bit thin and laying in a lot of mood and a lot of, I won't say filler, but a lot of non-essential material. And now it feels like we're in the home stretch. We really are now. We have 3 episodes left and only two nights left. That's right. So I think this last, what is now 3 more episodes, I think are going to be pretty packed. And, we've suggested at times that maybe it sounds a little bit like wishful thinking, but maybe the final episodes are actually the new Twin Peaks. You know what I mean? Like, it's really, this has all been very careful table setting for that movie length 2-episode night at the end, which is going to be perhaps just packed with incident and revelation. And on the other hand, maybe not.
Well, yes, we have no way of knowing. I would expect, though, that we will see a lot of things in that final 2 hours that bring us back full circle to things from the pilot. Kind of what, I'm planning on watching the pilot the day before, or the day of that, and just having that fresh in my mind. Because
You're talking about the original pilot.
The original pilot of Twin Peaks, yeah. Although I'm sure there will be things that come back to the pilot of this new series as well. Probably watch both of those.
Why not? Yeah, I mean, I do feel, I don't think or expect or even want every question to be answered. No. There will always be a long list of mysteries and unresolved discrepancies. But I'm very interested in how this story is going to work out. And, 3 episodes left. I mean, boy, a lot can happen in 3 episodes. And a lot's been happening on a pretty weekly basis. On this show.
Yeah, for several episodes now. So, I mean, I guess another question is, is there going to be a season 4? I've heard various reports. Apparently, Showtime has made a statement that there aren't currently plans, but that certainly doesn't mean there won't be. It just might mean that they're waiting for David Lynch to say, hey, I want to do it again, or...
Yeah, they kind of left the door open. I mean, it seems to me, maybe there will be a season 4 at some point. For that matter, maybe there will be a movie. I mean, maybe it'll come back in some other way. But it seems to me that, and I would, I'd be interested if it did. But it seems to me this season was so unlikely. It almost shouldn't have happened, and it seems like just almost the kind of cosmic accident that the show deals with had to happen for these 18 episodes to come to us this year. And the sheer unlikelihood of that makes me think I'm going to be satisfied with it.
Well, I mean, I suppose it depends on how well it's fared, how often people have tuned in, how well the ratings did, and whether Lynch and Showtime are able to have a working relationship and both want to do it. It's
and I hear a lot of what's that?
How is episode 18 going to end of this run, and is it going to be something that would really permit another season in any way? I mean, for all we know, it's like, and then the world blows up.
Yeah, but I mean, even that, if Lynch and Frost wanted to follow that end of the world with more Twin Peaks, they'd figure out a way to do it. But I mean,
the world has to get its identity back for 45 episodes of Treasure.
Yes, the world thinks it's Pluto.
Yeah.
And it's a little slow. But Pluto is married to Naomi Watts, and she does a fine job. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it seems to me that if there were something at the end of this season that changed our thinking about whether a fourth season was possible, they wouldn't want us to know that either.
I mean, I think that no matter, like the simplest way forward would be that towards the end of this season or at the end of this season, we, regular old Special Agent Dale Cooper is back and gets a new case for another season. Have something.
Like if it just had an absolutely standard kind of TV ending. Like, here we go again.
Well, look, those castaways are stuck on the island again.
Yeah, I'm not expecting that necessarily.
No. Okay, so what about our predictions last week? What were? Is it time for Theses of Stone?
Yes, it is. It's time for Theses
of
Stone. Well, last week on Theses of Stone, you, Marc-Anthony, predicted that in episode 15 we would see Cooper.
Now, if I had made that episode 14, we would have. We just wouldn't have seen his full face.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We did. We saw his face, and we also saw like a Fire Walk with Me flashback of Cooper. But I think we saw that today too. Wasn't he in the Philip Jeffries flashback?
Oh, I think he was. Okay, so technically.
But
what we all know that I really meant that this Cooper is going to realize who he is.
Yeah, I think you get a 50% credit for that one.
I'll take 25. I don't think I quite get 50. 25 sounds good.
Has 35 sound.
All right, that's very generous of you. Thank you.
35% right. I predicted that we would learn more about the connection between Mr. C and Richard Horne. I don't know that we learned more, but we did actually. We had a substantive scene between them. We had confirmation.
We know that Richard had been following him intentionally and knows who he is.
Yeah, and that not that we doubted it, but we know Audrey is his mother.
Right. We still do not know who his father is.
Yeah, but I'm going to say I was 92% right about that.
I think that sounds good.
And Amanda Sisk predicted memorably last week that at least half of episode 15 would be unhelpful, possibly pretentious, or accidentally edited in.
I was right.
And she is...
I heard it.
Yeah, she's letting us know from the other room that she was right.
Well, after, I want to know what was accidentally edited in.
Accidentally edited in. I don't know. Sunset Boulevard.
All right, so for this week, next week, what are we predicting?
What are our predictions for next week?
Has Amanda turned in a prediction yet, or is she just sitting this one out?
Well, she did say she has a cold. She's not feeling her best. She did announce at the end of tonight's episode that she predicted next week's would be even more irritating.
Okay.
So I guess I'll make that one official here.
Even more irritating.
Even more irritating.
Okay, so am going to predict that we're going to, in the next episode, we will find out exactly what Diane has been up to, or at least get a significant amount more information about what she's doing and with whom.
All right. And my prediction for episode 16. All right, and my prediction is that in the next episode, episode 16, Gordon Cole or the FBI characters in the story are going to have an in-person encounter with either Dougie Coop or Doppelkoop. So to sum up this week's predictions, Amanda Sisk in absentia, sort of, predicts that episode 16 will be even more irritating than episode 15. Marc-Anthony Macon predicts that in episode 16 we will learn something about what Diane has been up to, who she's involved with, and what her game is. And I predict that in episode 16, Gordon Cole, perhaps, and or company, will have an in-person encounter with Dougie Coop or Doppelkoop. And that's the way we do it here at Species of Stone.
Species of Stone. All right. Well, I think that's about it for this episode. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Please like the video and subscribe if you get a chance.
You can find us on Facebook.
All of these other...
Yes, we're Twin Peaks Faces of Stone on Facebook, and we love to be liked and commented on there. And you can follow us on Twitter, too, where Marc-Anthony is M_A_Macon. I am Noah Diamond, and Amanda Sisk is president of Sisk. Just because she didn't appear in this episode doesn't mean she's not in the credits, like Cheryl Lee, who is in the credits of every episode of Twin Peaks The Return. And you can follow Amanda Sisk and Cheryl Lee on Twitter.
All right, so we will see you next week. Just a few episodes to go. It's been a fun ride so far. Can't wait to see what happens next.
I can't wait either. It's a pleasure talking to you as always, Marc-Anthony.
Take care, Noah. Good night, everybody.